I just arrived at this recording studio here in Salt Lake. I am here because a few months ago I met a Lyft driver who told me about what he does, like what his real passion is, which is not driving for Lyft, it's painting. He and I got to talking. We exchanged information, and he told me about this sort of like artist collective that he's a part of that does a podcast with different local artists, and they asked me if I would come in and shoot a video of their podcast for them. So pretty excited, just stoked to check it out and see what they do. It sounds like it's a really cool project, so let's go for it.
One of them's Joe Drury, who now has artwork hanging in her current shop.
We want to welcome everybody to today's podcast, the Building Blocks Podcast. My name is Mark Putcher. I am your host. We have some awesome guests here today. First, I want to mention Kent Rigby and Counterpoint Studios. We've been doing our podcast here for some time. They do an amazing job. They're here on West Temple and 23rd South in Salt Lake City. They manage sound recordings for bands, obviously podcasts, probably pretty much anything you would need with a studio. So it's Counterpoint Studios again here in Salt Lake City. We also have a special privilege today. We're doing this one via video with Justin Mendez. He's a freelance videographer. You can find out more about his work after you see how great he does on this podcast at justinmendez.com. Again, that's justinmendez.com. All right, today we have with us a new business here in Utah. It's actually, they're not really new to Utah, but they've opened up a new location. Now, I noticed the sign on your shop, James, is Tattoo Collective, but then on the card it says Misery and Company. What's the actual name of your company?
It's Misery and Company Tattoo Collective.
Okay, so it's all of the above. So with us we have James Lamb, the owner, two of the artists from the business, Nico Valenzuela and Jed Miller. And then we have a close friend and business associate of mine, Keith Norton, here today. I want to thank you all for coming.
Oh, thank you.
One thing growing up in Utah, we were just talking about this a little bit ago. I grew up in the LDS culture, and I didn't know too many people with tattoos and that kind of thing. And as I've grown up in Utah, and you drive down the streets, you see more and more and more tattoo parlors. And it definitely seems to be a growing presence here. But if you wouldn't mind, maybe each one of you just introduce yourself, maybe talk about what your profession was, what it is now, and what your relationship to this company.
My name is Jed Miller, and I'm a tattoo artist at Misery and Company, and before that, basically a professional waiter while I worked on art. So initially my goal was to be, and still possibly in the future, is to do more illustrative work, fine art illustration, stuff like that. But things change in life and things unexpectedly come, and I just was put in a position where I needed to make some changes in life, and I just decided it had been something that I'd thought about and even tried to get into before, but I just, came to a point in my life where I needed to do something else, and I made the decision to start tattooing, knowing that that was a way to make decent money and still be able to work on art. And so, I resolved that one day, and the next day I got started, and here I am.
Okay, thank you. James?
I'm James Lamb. I own Misery and Company Tattoo Collective, along with my wife. We've been in the business of running a tattoo shop for coming up on 5 years now, and needed some more room to grow and expand the business and do some other things with it that we were trying to do at the other location that wasn't possible. So along with these two amazing artists, we started Misery and Company Tattoo Collective a few months back, and rolling. So
awesome. Yeah, I'm gonna, before we get to Nico, So you're born and raised in Utah, went to Woods Cross, served in the military, and also my friend Keith here served in the military in the Navy. Oh, Navy corpsman. Is that similar to what you?
Navy Corps. Yeah, he's my nurse.
He's your nurse? I'm sure there's some kind of sarcasm involved.
No, he's a corpsman. He's my nurse.
Oh.
That's what the corpsman does. They take care of me when I get sick. Or
Oh.
hurt.
Really? Okay.
Or cut me open if they need to remove something.
Yep.
That's their job.
Oh. Well, you didn't fix him totally. He's still.
He's not a psychiatrist.
Yeah.
There's a difference on that.
Can't fix everything.
Okay, cool. So yeah,
So where were you
so
stationed at? Just out of curiosity.
I was stationed. I spent most of my time in Camp Lejeune, North Carolina.
Ooh,
I was with,
down south.
Yeah, I was with 3rd Battalion, 6th Marines.
Oh, okay. So you were Navy Corps attached to the Marine Corps.
Yep.
Okay. Sorry.
No, that's okay. I was just
for me.
thinking, like growing up watching movies and that kind of thing, tattoos were sort of part of being in the service. Is that a real thing?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's part of being
you're
a comradeship, or
you're hard pressed to get out of the military service without some ink to represent what you are. You're hard pressed to do so.
Yeah.
sort of a
it's our culture.
It's become socially acceptable by getting a tattoo. Or?
Mm-hmm.
It's actually more socially acceptable to have tattoos than not in the military.
Oh, okay.
It's one of those badges of honor that we go through. You usually have a bunch of young kids, 19, 20, but you get attached to the Marine Corps and they have their Semper Fi's or they have their stuff. Navy, we have our stuff. Army has their stuff. You can really pretty much tell by looking at someone's tattoos what branch they come out of because of the way the artwork is going and the way that the artwork is done. It is, I don't want to say military specific, but you're hard pressed to find like a Navy corpsman that was attached to the Marine Corps is going to have more of Marine symbology with his tattoos than where I'm Navy. I'll have more Navy ideas with that. Army has theirs, and the Flyboys, of course, have theirs, and they're usually pink. That's the Air Force. Me and him got the joke. The rest of you probably didn't get the joke.
I know.
Me and him got the joke.
But is that where you got your first tattoo?
I got my first tattoo, I think 18th birthday. My mom got it.
Really?
It was a birthday present. She went and got one a few years earlier, and I told her, I said, well, now that you've got one, I get one.
You
So
definitely
it was a
didn't grow up in
birthday
my
present.
neighborhood.
But I don't think I got any more until I got into the military. And then, yeah, it was all bets were off at that point. So, yeah, I've been collecting them ever since.
Okay. Well, Nico, we haven't forgot about you. In fact, I don't know anybody would forget about you after meeting you. You have quite a presence. This is way off base, but my wife talks about you all the time. Your personality, and more your stupid cat and your bird. And I say stupid. I've always made fun of her because she loves these hairless cats. And what's the name of those things?
So
You know, too.
well, I'm Nikolai,
Uh-huh.
and I have 3 animals. I have my American Bully dog. His name is Prince, and then I have Fester. He is my hairless Bambino Sphinx cat,
Okay.
and then I also have Bug, and he's the Hans Macaw that is at the shop with us most of the time.
He was on the phone with me yesterday.
I'm sure you got a lot of squawking out of him.
He was squawking. And I guess people will be able to see you on this, but did you grow up artistically wanting to do this, or?
So when I was younger, I did a lot of like drawings. Most of them were honestly like little comic books that I made up myself and stuff like that. And then I would give them to the underclasses that were behind me, and they would just like read them and they just love them and stuff like that. And then I actually didn't really work on my artwork pretty much until my adulthood, because in like my neighborhood, I was born and raised in Denver, Colorado, and the neighborhood that I was in, they weren't very artistically inclined. So I didn't really have a way to kind of branch out and really submerge myself into the art world. And so once I became an adult, I had been doing like construction, and then I had for a while worked at an adult shop in Colorado, and I had this guy who was doing some of my tattoos. He kind of was just selling some of his equipment and stuff like that, and I ended up buying the equipment from him, and basically like taught myself how to tattoo. I don't recommend it because it's definitely a struggle to have to learn everything on your own. But yeah, I'm a self-taught artist, and as soon as I like kind of got into tattooing, I was able to focus more so on my artwork, and eventually that led me to leaving my job at the adult store and pursuing an actual tattoo career. So a shop had seen my stuff online, and they were like, hey, would you like to come in for an interview? We like your work. And it was my first shop that I had ever like stepped in foot for any sort of interviewing stuff. And I brought a little portfolio that I had put together like last minute, and they seen my stuff and they were like, hey, we would like to have you be a part of our crew. And it just kind of was all uphill from there, and
Okay.
I really enjoyed it.
Still in Colorado at that point?
Yeah, and I moved to Salt Lake about almost 3 years ago now. I just kind of needed a change. Like, one of the shops that I had ended up in Colorado, they weren't a good fit for me. So at that point, I had kind of just rage quit, and I was like, well, what am I going to do from here? So I was like, I've never been out of like Denver, Colorado. I've always lived here my entire life. I was like, let me go ahead and I want to try something different. And the girl that I was with at the time, she was like, oh, I have a family in Salt Lake. I was like, perfect, bingo, let's go. We took everything that we owned in 2 Jeep Cherokees and made the move up here. We got stuck in a ditch twice in the middle of winter during our move. That was wild. But then I came here and I kind of was searching and stuff, and that's when I had actually met James. And he was the first shop that like I had an interview with here, and I just went in with intentions and saying like, this is all of the stuff that I need from a shop. I'm not going to put up with anything less than that, and is it something that you're able to offer or not? And he looked at me and he said, all of the things that you've asked for are more than easily done. And I was like, okay, well then I don't have to go and interview anywhere else. And me and James have been pretty much stuck together ever since.
That's cool. Well, James must be a good guy. I wrote down a rage quit. I like that. I don't know why. My wife jokes about me. I when I burn down a bridge, I just burn it down really well. I make sure there's nothing left. So I have one friend after 24 years that I call. He's the only one that's made it through all the bridge burning. All right. Well, James, I suspect you didn't just grow up becoming. Well, you went. Did you come out of the service and start a tattoo?
No. I spent a lot of years after the service dealing with being out of the service. So it was just kind of. I always stayed within the medical field. I did for years and years and years. But what ended up happening was I always had that itch to start a business. So at first, me and a former friend and partner, we started a clothing company that was around during the Granary Row project. I don't know if you remember that. They set up a bunch of Connex boxes in the middle of the street and had little. It's like a weekend.
No, I don't remember, but I remember reading about your art boutique, your small clothing.
Yeah, so we went in there. I've always been a lover of art. My dad was an artist, still is an artist. So we sold artwork and clothing. We commissioned some work for our clothing. In fact, one of them's Joe Drury, who now has artwork hanging in our current shop. Mm-hmm. But in the process of that, we had who's become a very good friend of mine. This gentleman walked into the shop. His name was David Klebs. He owned Buzz Knuckle Tattoo, and it was over in Art Space Commons, just a little private studio. Me and him really hit it off and got talking to him quite a bit. And one day he's like, well, let's, why don't you come and let me tattoo you? And so he started tattooing me, and during the process of the 6-hour-long tattoo session, we just started talking about everything and anything. And I asked him what got him into a studio, why he wasn't in a bigger shop. He's certainly talented enough, and he said that he just had bad experiences and went along to tell me those experiences being in shops, and started realizing that like I'd had friends in the past that were tattoo artists, And then it was the same stuff over and over again, that the way that they didn't agree with certain ways that the shops were being run or anything like that. They all just had little issues here and there with them. And the end of our conversation, it just kind of, we just decided why not just do it ourselves and do it better. So that kind of got that ball rolling. So we spent a year and a half looking for a location that was good and finally found one and opened up.
Well, that seems like a really good location. There's a lot of traffic there. The way you've got your building, it just stands out. The sign and everything stands out.
Yeah,
Where's
it's
it
a
located
beautiful
at?
building. It's 244 West, 400 South.
Yeah, I always compare it to Pioneer Park because it's...
Yeah.
It's down the street from Anchors.
Well, one reason we're here is James not only supports the tattoo world, the arts in general. I own a Landmark Media Group who has two branches, and one's Landmark Artist. And Landmark Artist, James has put a number of artists in the tattoo shop to support the arts, and we're going to continue with a process. So, and it sounds like you still have that kind of artistic endeavor, Judd, right?
I do, yeah.
And that's what you were trying to do, but you couldn't substantiate yourself as an artist, so you needed to move into something that gave you more money directly.
Right, yeah.
You know, I think that's a really good way to do it, because most artists have to take a 9-to-5 job or do something else. And what generally happens is life takes over and art goes away. And it did for a long time. My wife is an amazing artist. She married me. I had 3 kids. So it became 4 kids, our little mini Brady Bunch. And she didn't do art for a long time until our kids grew up. And so I think you guys have done a wonderful thing for yourself to continue to express yourself through art and do it with people.
Right, yeah. Same with me. It was, meeting somebody and having a child together, and I didn't want to lose the art aspect. I'd worked too hard to give that up, and so I had to do something, and that's got into tattooing.
You made a comment. I was trying to find where I found it in the New York Times. I'm looking down my computer as those that aren't watching this on video. There we go. An article by art critic Michael Kimmelman argued in 1950 that tattoos were most interesting to the art world because of their outsider status, comparing them to self-taught artists, prison art, and he says, I don't know what the fine art world knows what to do with this. So in actuality, like my daughter has a mural of a dolphin scene on her back. And literally, you guys, I mean, without question, it's an amazing art form. It's still new to me, but is it, do you feel like it's more respected now? Do you feel like you're more accepted within the art community, or does it matter?
Well, before you answer that one, what's your discipline? I mean, are you New Age? Are you modern realistic? Are you, I mean, do you have do you specialize in like black and white, color?
Yeah,
that kind of questions.
Well, it really kind of tied into tattooing anyways, because it was mostly like black and white line work type stuff, ink drawings and stuff like that. So more illustrative work. Yeah.
And what about for your specialty? Or are you a jack of all trades?
Well, I kind of I enjoy doing a little bit of everything, but lately, like, with me being a self-taught artist, I kind of took on the role of not being able to, like I said, really experience my own style of artwork for a number of years. And even now, like, I've been making more of an effort into finding myself as an artist. Like, being on this journey, I've been tattooing for now almost nearly 6 years, and I still didn't really have like a set style or something that really like resonated or represented part of me. I was just kind of giving people what they want and just experimenting with different styles, trying to execute, being able to visualize what they put in front of me and be able to give them what they wanted to my best abilities. And that made me kind of lack on being able to be my own individual artist. And that's something that I think a lot of tattoo artists face, is that there comes like the trending, there comes the tattoos that are popular at certain times, at, you know, certain years, more things like watercolor or, you know, black work, realism. They all kind of blend in together, but they all have their trends. And as artists, it's hard because you kind of, sometimes you can lose yourself because you're just trying to like put yourself out there and give people what they want. And you have to take a step back and like say, is this me? Like, I'm doing what I love, but do I really love what I'm doing on each person? And so I've been trying to, a lot of my regulars, they have shown me nothing but love and support, and they allow me to create something that is of my own style with the references that they bring me. And I've really been thoroughly like enjoying that alone. And my own style, like I've been calling it neon black work. It's just something made up, just like everything else is made up, okay? So I'm just trying to make my own thing. But that's what I would say that I'm leaning more towards.
What about you, James?
He doesn't tattoo.
You don't. You
From
don't.
the business.
No.
Yeah.
You don't eat.
I don't
you're
have
not
time
an
for
artist.
that. Nope.
So you're the administration side of this
Yeah,
thing.
I'm the administration side
Okay.
of it.
So now the other question along what Mark was talking about as far as being accepted and stuff like that. What do you guys think as far as when you do it as an artist and looking at it, and we'll use Lena since I know her. Bad line here, bad line there. I don't like what this is doing. I have a nice little canvas. I can repaint over it. How do you guys find that when you guys do your art, that when you have a bad line or you have something like that, do you take that into it and say, okay, you know, because tattooing, at least for me, and I have mine. I just haven't covered, but I have mine. I find it would be a little bit more stressful as a tattoo artist than just an artist, because once that line is in skin, it's there. There is no going back from that mistake or that offset. So you guys are probably going to be more disciplined as far as your artwork goes, as far as paying attention to detail and making sure that the vision that you see in your head is coming through even when you're drawing it out on paper, because you know that responsibility of putting it on ink. Do you feel like when you guys talk to other artists that don't deal in that with the skin as a spectrum, they deal with canvas or paint, that they respect you as much as they should for the amount of talent and time that it takes? Because skin is unforgiving, and where they can always make a mistake and cover it, where you guys can't really do that. I was curious if when you talk to other artists outside of the tattoo community, if they give you that respect for that, because it's not an easy task.
Can I just say that's an amazing question, by the way. Very, very well thought out question. So.
Thanks.
I'll start. Just coming from both sides of the spectrum, it really is kind of akin to just doing line illustrations or whatever, because it's the same in a way. Using a brush or a pen to create a perfect line, and you only get one chance on a piece of paper. There's no painting over it. So it's kind of similar with skin in that way, but the difference with skin is that skin is different in any part of the body. Mm-hmm. It's a moving canvas, and so no, I don't really think that people that haven't tattooed understand how difficult it can be, because it's one area of the body is way different mm-hmm. than another, and even an inch away is way different than another, and you have to try and control those variables. And so yeah, you don't get a repaint over it, you only get one shot. And so, but yeah, it's kind of similar to doing perfect lines on a piece of paper with whatever instrument. So you only get one shot, you can't mess up that single line, so yeah.
Well, I'd have to say that, like Judd had mentioned, that people who have not tattooed I don't think that they understand or give the respect to tattoo artists that they should. And that mainly has to do with the fact, like currently right now at Misery & Co. Tattoo Collective, I have 3 apprentices at one time. I don't even know if that's like a thing. Like most artists, they tend to only having 1 apprentice. This is my first time having multiple apprentices at once. And I absolutely love it because, I mean, there's so many things that me being a self-taught artist, I had to learn on my own. All the variables that it is as to location of where you're getting the tattoo, different types of skin, older skin, younger skin, different ethnicities of skin. I mean, there's just so many variables, and when really creating this type of craft, you're going in there and you kind of don't really know what to expect. It's all improv. Like you can't really have expectations necessarily for when you're creating a tattoo that way. Everything is a variable. So when you're starting to tattoo, you have your needle depths, you have your voltage, you have a bunch of different things that go into play, different size needles, and how far they're out, where you're tattooing on the skin, and it's a very overlooked process. That's like something that I realize more so now, having so many apprentices, is that each one of them learns differently too. So some may be a little bit more verbal, some may be a little bit more visual, and I kind of have to cater a little bit to explaining all of those things that I'm doing on that level. And it can get intense because I think that, yeah, it's not like putting it down on paper or canvas or anything like that. It's its own art form. And I mean, that's why as an artist, I haven't really explored a whole lot in other mediums because, to be quite honest, there's nothing that gives me that satisfaction like skin does. It's its own canvas, and it's beautiful.
I have a feeling it could be a lifelong. You'll never learn it all.
yeah, you're forever growing. Yeah. That's the great thing is that, you know, I tell my apprentices, look, you're tattooing this onto somebody for the rest of their life. Don't get so caught up in all of the little mistakes that you make, because mistakes are inevitable, and it's about how you fix them. It's about how you take control of that situation. You acknowledge and you're aware of where you went wrong, and you know how to make it right. That's like an everyday life lesson, I can think. So
right. Absolutely. You know, and you mentioned the relationship between art and what you guys do. Is we have a great opportunity, James. We talked about getting ourselves into the gallery stroll by combining these different efforts, and I believe if we associate all of us together, there's both the regular canvas artists, the sculptors, and what you do, and that the gallery people know, because your skill level is just as high as anything else we're doing up there.
I would from looking at all the artwork, and I said I'm not an artist and I don't live in this world, so but I do collect my ink, so there's that. But I would say that out of the mediums and out of the arts, that I truly believe that most of you guys don't get the respect that you need in the community from other artists. Again, the talent that is there for the lines that have to be done, and the work that has to be done, and the cover-ups, and the meeting someone's dream and putting it on them. Ladane said at one time that tattoos are a poor man's Van Goghs. I truly believe that. We collect them. Everyone's special. Everyone has a meaning. And for you guys to be able to do that and do it as well as you do, and then to have somebody in a gallery say, well, you know, you're a tattooist, pick up an ink, let's go and see what you can do. Because I don't think Van Gogh could tattoo. He can paint, but it's a different medium. It's a different art form. And from a guy that collects ink, I have my favorites. I have my guys that I go to. They're phenomenal with what they do, and I wouldn't trade them for the world. But I wouldn't want to pay a room in my house.
I think it's too often forgotten too that most tattoo artists, they didn't just all of a sudden decide like I want to do art and I want to tattoo. Most good tattoo artists have a solid art background to begin with. It's not, you usually don't have one without the other. When Judd's portfolio was first brought in 2.5 years ago, something like that, he had one piece in there that just blew me and everybody else that saw it away. And he had a bunch of other very well done pieces, but it only took the one for us to realize that he had the talent. We just needed to teach him he just needed to learn pick up a new brush, basically. He needed to learn a new way of applying his art. And you see that with people as they go through their apprenticeships, where they hit this, and even just through tattooing, I feel like there's this this noticeable thing where their artwork is here at a certain level, and their ability to replicate that artwork that they can put on paper or on canvas isn't quite there yet, because they don't have the technical ability. And once they learn that technical ability, it catches up to their art, and then you almost see their art just do another jump. And it's such an amazing thing to see. I don't know why it is. Part of me thinks it's because when you're tattooing, you have to set aside those fears. You see people apprentices, like I've seen plenty come through. What ends up happening is they get to the point where they're about to tattoo, and stuff kind of goes downhill a little bit, because they all of a sudden get overwhelmed with this fear of like the permanence of it, and I feel like when tattoo artists get over that, their art immediately jumps up even another level, and it's amazing to see. And these guys, Nico's got a painting that he's unfortunately been working on for a long time, that is amazing. Just doesn't have the time to work on it.
I don't make the time.
Yeah. And Judd is constantly working on art as well, outside of the medium of tattooing.
So as you're opening your shops and you're looking for your artists and you're looking for the brand recognition and the brand stability that you have going for your shops, are you looking for more the technical side of things or the artistic side, because you can teach the technical? I've just been curious. That's just a curious question for me.
I've always felt it's easier to have the technical side taught than the artistic side. If you have somebody that's got a solid artistic background, I mean, there's artists out there right now that are blowing the tattoo industry away, that have decades of fine art background, but only 3 or 4 years of tattooing experience. And
you find it easier
because they've been able to bring that. Yeah, because they've been able to bring that solid art base into it to begin with. Once they learn how to tattoo, it's seen them elevate. And I think that's actually what, as a whole, has elevated the tattoo industry. Is you have a lot more people with more of a fine arts background coming into the industry, or people that just have a really solid art background coming in. Whereas I feel like maybe that wasn't necessarily true decades ago.
People are graduating art school now and just getting into tattooing because it's lucrative,
I've met a lot of people that are pursuing wanting to be a tattoo artist that have been at the gallery shows that they're in.
Yeah.
So it's definitely socially.
There's a lot of artists out there. I won't say there's a lot of great artists out there.
Right. Well,
there's a couple of touch-ups that have to be
we
done.
actually have a conversation coming up in another show I have today. One of the challenges artists face, just traditional artists, is they have a passion for maybe doing the form, the body, or they have a passion for doing this. But that's not what sells in this market. And I use that specifically because I have a sculptor and somebody that likes to paint the human form. But in this market here in Utah, their other work sells far more. And I suspect you probably have something you love to do artistically more than others. But you're sort of bound by what the consumer wants as a tattoo artist, especially. Or is that correct? Or
I would definitely say so. Like I was kind of mentioning earlier, like it's kind of, you lose yourself if you don't know how to draw yourself back into what it is that you enjoy, because people do want what they want, how they want it, when they want it. And as an artist, I mean, just even though it is lucrative, just as any other art form, you're still a starving artist. Like, it's just what happens, and you have to sometimes kind of work with what you have and do it the best you can. Because, I mean, I've had clients that just come in for very specific what they want, how they want it, And I like to, this is on their body, and I respect that. And I don't want them to feel invalidated by me just kind of turning them away for what they want. I know that if it's not exactly my style, I have that, I can do that. I can say, oh, that's not for me. Let me get you paired with an artist that will be able to do that. But I feel like giving somebody tattooing is so much farther than, what you traditionally have in the art world, because you guys are talking about experiencing how somebody perceives your art, and you're talking about submersing someone else into your art as a tattoo artist. And what you're doing is you're pulling them in, not only for the actual piece, but for the experience as well. How you treat them. And like a lot of people, they get tattoos as badges, as memories, and knowing those things. It's so much more than just looking at the art. I know these people individually. I know their families. I know their background stories as to why they got these pieces and everything else. So I don't know. I feel like, it's definitely its own beast, but you have to be willing to hear everyone's story too, before you just say, oh, that's not my thing, and you don't want to do it.
No, and then on that one, so when somebody does come in and as a tattoo artist, I'm sure that I want this rose here, and you're knowing that that's not going to work. It's not going to look the way they expect it to look. I've had to shift a couple of tattoos and positions because of what I wanted, where I wanted it wasn't going to work the way I thought it was. How do you guys handle that one? Because it is basically your business card. You again, back to that whole, this canvas is what they want it to be. How do you guys get inside of that with that one and still give them what they want?
Jed, why don't you take that one?
It's just there has to be some flexibility on both ends. The client has to trust the artist to know what's best, and the artist has to do their best to give the client what they want. So there has to be flexibility, sometimes people don't want to be flexible, and you just have to do the best that you can and make it work the best that you can, and so
and then inside of that one, that's kind of what didn't get the question all the way out, I guess. So when you come up with that one where you're kind of bound by what they want, where they want it, and you're doing the best job you can, how do you get that so that it's like that doesn't, like, you don't feel like that represents your in the best work because you knew it wasn't going to work where it was going to do, but the client's being inflexible about that? How do you process through that as an artist, saying this isn't my best work, this isn't exactly, I know it'll look better here, I know it would have done better here, but I'm bound by that. How do you personally get through that as an artist is kind of what I was asking.
Well, there's been plenty of times where I did something that just wasn't really my thing, but it's always an opportunity to do your best, and it's always an opportunity to be better. So just like I said, it's not always going to be your thing, but it's still learning. It's still the opportunity to execute something as best as you can, and at the end of the day, that's all you've got is just doing your best. So sometimes it doesn't work out as well as you'd like, but you did your best, So,
and also on that one, for yours, because since you're the shop's reputation is basically yours. Artists come and go from tattoo parlors. Mine's been to 3 in the last couple of years because of issues with their tattoo with the parlors themselves. But you're trying to build that clientele. You're trying to build that reputation. Do you ever get involved in those kind of decisions when you, or can kind of see that maybe the client and the artist aren't seeing eye to eye? Do you get involved in that, or do you leave that solely on the artists and clients?
There's been times where
I'm just curious.
There's been times where I've pointed out that maybe we're just not the right shop for a client, but ultimately I think I've been successful so far, at least with these two, that they approach every tattoo with the utmost technical ability that they have, which is phenomenal. Whether they're excited about doing the tattoo or not, they still approach it the same way. Because of that, I can honestly say we haven't had anybody leave the shop unhappy.
Sweet. That's huge.
That's something that we try and maintain. That's something that I've always pushed. I tell these guys all the time, I have zero tolerance policy for bad tattoos. It's one bad tattoo can hurt a reputation of an artist or a shop.
Quickly.
Yes, very quickly. And these guys know that, and they respect that. They respect the fact that there's the permanence of it, and that these people, they put a lot of care and they put a lot of faith into these guys when they're marking their bodies permanently. So, I mean, what's important to us as a shop, one way that we found that we can work through these things beforehand is that we push that we do consultations before any tattoo. Generally, we don't do a consultation and then immediately tattoo afterwards, unless it's a piece of artwork that's been drawn up ahead of time by these artists, something that they're just excited to tattoo and they put a price on it. But that gives these guys the opportunity to build that relationship with the client and understand what they're really going after with this tattoo. Because sometimes clients will have a hard time expressing what they're fully looking for in the tattoo, as far as what style and what color usage and stuff like that. And that time that these guys have with their clients before the tattoo allows them the ability to work through that and make sure that both parties can be as happy as they can be going forward.
That's impressive. A lot of tattoo shops don't do that consultation. That you can go in at 9 o'clock, be tattooed by 11 and be home. That's absolutely, applaud you for taking that time as a shop and as artists to make sure that everything is met, and then set up a time to do it later, so that if something does change or some minds change, you're not halfway through something. When for the amount of people that I know that are tattooed, that is a rarity anymore, to have a consultation before you get ink. So I applaud you guys. That is absolutely fabulous on all of your guys' parts.
You'd be hard pressed to find somebody. I feel like you'd be hard pressed to find as many people, anyways, that are unhappy with tattoos that they have, that didn't get them done the same day. I feel like if you and the artist both have a few days to be able to think about it, after seeing the design and working through the design and colors and placement and stuff like that, if a couple days later you're still as excited as you were the day you walked in, then it's going to be a good tattoo and you'll be happy with it. You know, and if we've had it where people, they'll come in for consultations and things will get drawn up and they'll sit down, and then the next day they're calling up and going, hey, I thought about it a little more and I'd like to incorporate this color or change this a little bit. And it's something that, had the tattoo been done that day, it's a little hard to change it after the fact. But given that couple of days of time in between, it certainly, I think it lends itself to clients leaving happier.
That's phenomenal. I'm seriously, that is phenomenal.
And also too, piggybacking off of that, what he was saying is, when we do consultations, we also offer them free of charge. Your consultation that you have with us is a free consultation. And we do, if you do want to set up an appointment at a later date, or you want to come back later that day after we get the time to possibly have the piece drawn up, we have you just leave a deposit. And the difference about, I feel like, our studio opposed to other competitive ones is that I feel like we focus so much more than just on the actual technical ability of the tattoos, and we really focus on the people and the customer service aspect of it, because that's, you're going to get return client again and again, and referrals from their friends and stuff like that. So it's about educating these people in, hey, you think that you want this, but during this consultation, I'm going to explain to you and educate you on all the different options that we have to give you the best piece that we possibly can. And I think by offering those consultations for free, that they normally range maybe about 15-20 minutes long, and I feel like, yes, we are busy, but we should never be too busy to where we can't fully hear out what these people have to say for the artwork that they want permanently on their body forever.
Right. I'm going to bring up another piece from the article, and I want to to Keith right after I do this, and then we'll just talk about it real briefly. We're almost. It says today, this is from the New York Times also, today the high-end tattoo artist can spend 30 to 40 hours, often at hundreds of dollars per hour, working on a single custom piece, and often develop close relationships with the person you're doing it on, which makes sense to me. I mean, that's a very personal piece of art. When the tattoo is finished, their art gets up and walks out the door permanently, and in a sense, it becomes my art because it's on my body, but yet it is yours. And I know, so I'd like you to address your relationship with your art as in that respect as it is on another human being, and that now it's in a sense their art also. I just didn't want to forget, I know in talking with Keith, because I'm like, well, I've got to know these people and they're awesome. You have a certain relationship you wanted with your tattoo artist before you allow anybody to do ink on you, right?
Oh yes,
That's
I need
generally.
I need to know who they. I need to talk with them. I need to make sure that there's a relationship. I'm that one. I'm that client that most people don't want in their shop. To be completely honest with you, because I'm that one that I want you to do your work. I want you to be quiet. I don't want to have a bunch of conversations going on. Put your earbuds in. I'll put my earbuds in. Let's get the work done and get on. There are other clients like my wife. She loves to have conversations during her tattoos. If I'm going to be sitting there for 6 hours, I'm not talking for 6 hours. I'll have my earbuds in. I'll take a couple of breaks for smokes and coffee, and then you can put in your own little world. So that's what we were talking about, is how you guys determine what your needs are for the clients. Because like I said, I have my guy that is pretty good about making sure that he, other than, hey, tap me on the shoulder if we're getting to pain or if we're doing that. Other than that 4 or 5 hour session is going to be a very quiet session, almost like we're not even there other than the needle. And then there are other people, like I said, my wife, who just loves to talk the entire time. I can't be in the room when she's getting tattooed because it drives me up a wall, because I'm trying to do the same thing and I'm trying to relax. So we never get tattooed at the same time.
Yeah, so
but on that one, and then to kind of, I can speak from the person that's collecting the tattoos. I can tell you which one's Jeremy's, which one's Mike's, which one's Tony's. When someone says, oh, that's great art. Yeah, Tony does a great job at this style, or Jeremy does a great style at this style. It's their art. I'm just wearing it.
Right.
It represents me, and as long as the art is done to represent me the best way, which most tattoo artists strive very hard to do as an industry as a whole. But we are walking postcards, billboards, and business cards for the artist, because I didn't draw that. I didn't do that. And I'm not sitting here with a gun. That's Jeremy's work.
Right.
So.
Well, I just brought it up because this isn't a tattoo artist saying this. He says you have to be good at letting go. I don't know if there's an emotional tie to like something that you put a lot of time into. I mean, there's a tattoo where you could just put a little heart on somebody where there's.
I guess the question on that one would be is if someone came in and said, I want your work or your work out of your portfolio, and said, hey, I love what you've done here. I want this, versus someone coming in and saying, hey, this is what I want. Can you help me design this? I guess that would be the question I would ask, is how you separate those two. Because for me, one would be, I painted that, yes, but that's what he wanted. But if somebody picks my art, how do I separate and let them walk out of here with my art? I guess I can. I never thought about it that way.
I mean, I would say that if you're looking to even get into the tattoo industry and you can't form that kind of attached detachment, then it's probably not the industry for you, because I am sharing my art. Just like anybody else, they buy your paintings, they buy your sculptures, and you share that with them. And yes, it does become their art too. It's still yours, but it's theirs. And it's the same kind of way, because I mean, what you're doing is you're saying, hey, this is a piece of me that you get to take with you. And you are like, in a weird sense of a way, you're bonded with that person over that piece for their entire life. And that's a beautiful experience.
It's a great way to put that.
Yeah.
I personally think being in tattooing, it's already assumed that piece is going to walk out the door. So I feel like it's a little bit easier than maybe being a painter, where maybe you invested the same amount of time in that painting, but it's physical and you can hold it, and it's a little bit harder to let that go, I think, because you know, I don't know what it is about paintings, but yeah, I mean, tattooing, you're already assuming that once it's done, it's gone, you know. So
I think it's illegal to cut it out and take it back.
Yeah. It'd be frowned upon. At the very least, it would be frowned upon.
I mean, leave it to you in your wheel. Take it when I'm done.
Yeah. Well, and then it's the time's pretty much up. But James, I want you to know that I'm excited to be a part of what you guys are doing. And anybody that's listening, I believe you still have space for tattoo artists.
For tattoo artists,
For
yes.
tattoo art.
We have 2 booths available right now. A few more coming down the road.
Right.
We have a rather large space, so it's taking us time to get through it all and really bring it up to the standards that we want. But we do have 2 available booths right now. I think they're 11 foot by 13 foot private rooms.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I was just going to mention that for anybody listening that maybe I know we have artists that work within the urban arts. Some people I've met that want to become tattoo artists and that. So, and those are you looking for a tattoo? It is a beautiful place. I mean, it reminds me of a doctor's office. It's so clean and new and refreshing on the inside. There's a quacky bird, but no, that's Nico. No, there's a feathered bird too. But I'm going to work with you guys, and we'll build more relationship with the community and the artists. And I'm looking forward to it. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your work.
thanks for having
Yes.
us.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Learned a lot, man. Appreciate it.
All right, appreciate it, guys. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you too.
And thank you, Justin. He's over there filming.
Thanks, Justin.
Yeah.